We have come to the 19th chapter of the book of Ezekiel. To understand this chapter, I want to go to the Adam Clarke's Bible commentary. And this then is what he writes about these verses in chapter 19. This chapter contains two beautiful examples of the parabolic kind of writing. The one lamenting the sad catastrophe of Jehoahaz and Jehoiakim, verse 1 to 9, and the other describing the desolation and captivity of the people, 10 to 14. In the first parable, the lioness is Jerusalem. The first of the young lions is Jehoahaz, disposed by the king of Egypt. The second lion is Jehoiakim, whose rebellion drew on himself the vengeance of the king of Babylon. In the second parable, the vine is the Jewish nation, which long prospered, it being fertile, its princes powerful, and its people flourishing. But the judgment of God, in consequence of their guilt, had now destroyed a great part of the people. Yes, because remember, Ezekiel was a captive by the river of Kibar. Much of the house of Judah was already in captivity. So as he says here, has now destroyed a great part of the people and doomed the rest to captivity. Yes, Jerusalem was yet to fall, and the rest then, shall we say, of the house of Judah would be taken to Babylon. Verse 1, he says, "Moreover, take up a lamentation. Declare what is the great subject of sorrow in Israel. Compose a funeral dirge. Show the melancholy fate of the kings who proceeded from Josiah." The prophet deplores the misfortune of Joahaz and Jehoiakim under the figure of two lion whelps, which were taken by hunters and confined in cages. Next, he shows the desolation of Jerusalem under Zedekiah, which he compared to a beautiful vine plucked up by the roots, withered, and at last burned. Verse 2, "What is your mother? A lioness. Judah may here be the mother. The lioness is probably Jerusalem. Her lying down among the lions, her having confederacy with the neighboring kings. For lion here means king." Verse 3, "She brought up one of her whelps, Joahaz, son of Josiah, whose father was conquered and slain by Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt. It learned to catch prey. His reign was a reign of oppression and cruelty. He made his subjects his prey and devoured their substances." Verse 4, "The nations also heard of him. The king of Egypt, whose subjects were of diverse nations, marched against Jerusalem, took Jehoias prisoner, and brought him to Egypt. Thus he was taken in their pit." Here is an allusion to those trap pits digged in the forest, into which the wild beasts fall, when the huntsmen, surrounding a given portion of the forest, drive the beasts in, by degree narrowing the enclosure, till the animals come to the place where the pits are, which, being lightly covered over with branches and turf, are not perceived, and the beasts tread on them and fall in. Jehoahaz reigned only 3 months before he was dethroned by the king of Egypt, against whom it is apparent some craft was used. He is signified by the pit into which he fell. Verse 5, when she saw that she had waited, being very weak, the Jews found that they could not resist with any hope of success. So the king of Egypt was permitted to do as he pleased. She took another of her whelps, Jehoiakim, and made him a young lion, king of Judah. Verse 6, "And he went up and down among the lions, and he became a perfect heathen, and made Judea as idolatrous as any of the surrounding nations. He reigned 11 years, a monster of iniquity." 2 Kings 23 verse 30, etc. Verse 8, Adam Clarke goes on in verse 8. The nations set against him, the Chaldeans, the Syrians, the Moabites, and the Ammonites, and the king of Babylon, king of many nations. He was taken. The city was taken by Nebuchadnezzar, and Jehoiakim was taken prisoner and set in chains to Babylon, sent in chains to Babylon. Verse 9, that his voice should no more be heard. He continued in prison many years. The reign of Elvil-Mordach, who set him at liberty, but never suffered him to return to the mountains of Israel. He never did come back to the Holy Land. Verse 10, your mother, Jerusalem, is like a vine in your blood. Of this expression, Clarke says, I know not what to make. It's a little bit dubious in the Hebrew. Some think, he says, it means a vine planted by the waters to produce the blood of the grape. See Deuteronomy 32, verse 14. Full of branches, many princes. See the next verse, verse 11, he says, she had strong rods, Zedekiah and his many sons. His stature was exalted. Zedekiah grew proud of his numerous offspring and prosperity, and although he copied the example of Jehoiakim, yet he thought he might safely rebel against the king of Babylon. Verse 12, but she was plucked up in fury. Jerusalem, taken after a violent and most destructive siege, Nebuchadnezzar being violently enraged against Zedekiah for breaking his oath to him. She was cast down to the ground. Jerusalem was totally ruined by being burned to the ground. Her strong rods were broken. The children of Zedekiah were slain before his eyes, and after that his own eyes pulled out, and he was laden with chains and carried into Babylon. Verse 13. And now she is planted in the wilderness, in the land of Chaldea, with the people who have been carried captive, and which, compared with their own land, was for them a dreary wilderness. Verse 14. Fire is gone out. Vindictive and murderous disposition has taken hold. A vindictive and murderous position has taken hold of a rod of her branches. Ishmael, son of Nethaniah, who was of the blood royal Judah, hath devoured her fruit, has assassinated Gedaliah, slain many people, and carried others into the country of the Ammonites. He was pursued by Jonathan, the son of Kareah, who slew many of his adherents and delivered much of the people. She has no strong rod. None of the blood royal of Judah left. And from that time, not one of her royal race ever sat upon the throne of Israel. Well, the subject of the throne of Israel is a totally different subject. Adam Clarke finishes by saying, this is a lamentation. This is a most lamentable business, and shall be for a lamentation. These predictions shall be so punctually fulfilled, and catastrophic shall be so complete, or the catastrophe shall be so complete that it shall ever remain a lamentation. So that was a prophecy of the downfall of the rest of Judah and Jerusalem and the king, and how indeed the king was taken to Babylon. The throne of Israel, that is a completely other subject, and it is all gone into in detail under the history section of my website, under the book Judah's Scepter and Joseph's Birthright. And there you will find all of the information concerning the throne of Israel and what really happened to it. But it's a prophecy that did come to pass, and It is a type of what will come to pass in the future. The throne of Israel today has a woman sitting upon it. When these prophecies of Ezekiel come to pass, there will be a man sitting on the throne of Israel. And so this is a type. What happened back then in Jerusalem and the throne of Israel is a type of what will happen in the future, at the end time, when indeed the throne of Israel, the people of Israel, the people of the house of Israel, the house of Judah, will be taken again in captivity by the end time Babylon. There is coming an end time Babylon. It is mentioned in the book of Revelation, Revelation 17, 18. There is an end time Babylon. Jeremiah spoke about it in the last chapters of the book of Jeremiah. And so there will be another captivity into Babylon, modern Babylon, the end time Babylon. There will be another captivity of the house of Judah and the house of Israel and the throne of Israel taken into Babylon at the end time. As I've said many times already, when Jesus the Messiah returns, the house of Israel and the house of Judah are in captivity to their lover enemies. And we will see more about that as we go along in the book of Ezekiel and the deliverance that Jesus will bring to them when he returns.